You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Today, we're going to finish up our house calls for the weekend. We've got 3 amazing questions, so I'm looking forward to answering your questions today and then giving myself 2 days rest. Well, not quite 2 days, about a day and a half rest, and then start back on next week podcast. So let's get right into them. And then I will go back and I will save my voice for next week. All right. So D is up first. D is asking, hi, Stephen, greetings from Ireland. In the past month, I have stopped taking birth control pills. I was on it for a very long time, 15 years. I'm eating great, exercising, sleeping, and generally feeling really well, but my skin is going a little haywire, especially along my jawline, which I understand is linked to hormones. My question is this: is there anything I can do to help calm it down? The only supplements I take are cod liver oil and a probiotic. I'd really love your advice. Thanks in advance. You're an inspiration, D. Thank you, D. I really appreciate that. And I'm so happy that you are listening all the way across the Atlantic in Ireland. So that's great. So what I'd like to say is this, is that yesterday when I answered Justine's question, hopefully you tune back into that one, I really went into different causes for acne. And you know, one thing I didn't mention for Justine, because again, like I'm on the spot, I'm trying to like answer this within 3 or 4 minutes each question, is that you can do a food sensitivity test. And again, you can find that right online, right at our Stephen Cabral online store. But the other thing is, I want you to know, specifically in your case, I honestly believe that this is most likely hormone-based. And D, so I have some good news for you, and I have some, well, not so great news. So the not so great news isn't even that bad, and I'm going to get to that in one moment. So the good news is this, is that for most women who have been on birth control for a while, I see it taking about 3 to 6 cycles. That means 3 to 6 months for you to get your hormones fully balanced after being on birth control for more than a few years. Now, you've been on for 15 years, right? So you have to keep in mind, the body is a living thing. Literally, our mind, our brain is connected to this organism, and the organism, just like a plant, just like growing flowers, just like growing food, it does not come to fruition the next day. So what you put in today, what you're doing today, you get out in a couple months from now. And that's really hard for people to understand. And what I'm saying to you is this: the not so great news is it's probably going to take 3 to 6 months. All right, 3 to 6 cycles. But the great news is it's only going to take 3 to 6 months, and then you're going to be feeling great again. Now, if you want to help it along, I can give you a couple of things to help it along. So what you're going to want to do is, again, most women are suffering from what's called estrogen dominance. So estrogen dominance is most powerful the last 5 to 7 days of your cycle, before day 1 of your cycle. That means that as you start to decrease overall stress, you will balance your hormones to a much greater degree and faster. Now, not a lot of people are talking about this, but I see this happen, play out every week in my practice. And that's because, again, progesterone for the most part is not in balance with estrogen simply because of stress. It's being used to sacrifice itself essentially to 17-hydroxyprogesterone and then to cortisol. So if we know that and we want to balance those hormones faster, what we're going to do is we're going to really just generally, just like you're doing, start to eat a lot cleaner. Make sure you're not constipated, because I know a lot of women are constipated. They don't like to talk about it. But if you're not having at least 1 bowel movement per day, 1 to 2 every day, then you really have to make sure that you get that in check. And again, we have a great simple constipation protocol. I also did constipation podcast. So you're going to want to check those out, because you're not going to properly eliminate estrogen as well from your body. So of course, I recommend a detox. If you haven't done that yet, 7, 14, or 21 day, absolutely. You could even do 1 day a week of just like smoothies, and that will help that detox even faster. What else could you do? You can start to do apple cider vinegar, about 2 to 3 ounces in water, and some greens in the morning. That's going to be even more alkalizing. A really great way to get more natural minerals in your body. The probiotic and the cod liver oil could be fine. I'm assuming they are. Cod liver oil, for the most part, can be absolutely fantastic. A probiotic, I always ask, well, what probiotic, what strains are you using? Everyone thinks that probiotic is the same. It's just not the case. There's like 100 main strains that we see right now being marketed. I only want you to be using really the small intestinal-based strains for the most part. Check out our daily probiotic support for which strains that I recommend. Obviously, you can check back to previous podcasts. One more thing, because I could talk about this literally all day, because I do. One other probiotic that you might want to check out is called the LeakyGut probiotic. And the only reason I recommend that, and possibly the organic acid test, birth control leads to typically greater amounts of candida or yeast overgrowth. The LeakyGut probiotic is a very simple way to push out some of that yeast. However, if you have high yeast, meaning if you have any bloating at all, if you already have the skin issues, you might want to look into testing using the organic acid test or just simply following the candida protocol that I recommend. So Dee, hopefully that answers your question, and I really appreciate you writing in. Thank you. Edith is up next. Edith is asking, hi, Dr. Cabral, do you have any thoughts about long-term use of Adderall on the brain? I have both ADHD and stage 3 adrenal fatigue per my naturopath. I've asked my psychiatrist if Adderall is bad for adrenal fatigue, and he laughed and said adrenal fatigue doesn't even exist. What are your thoughts? I know I need to stop, but I rely on it for energy. Okay. So first of all, Edith, your naturopath is correct and your psychiatrist is not. And I'm not playing favorites because I believe in all forms of medicine, and that includes psychiatry. However, things do not exist in a vacuum. And just because in like medical literature, we don't call it adrenal fatigue, what we do call it is hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis dysfunction. Okay. In the real world, we call that adrenal fatigue. It does exist. You could just let your psychiatrist know to look up hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis dysfunction. And then he will say, oh, okay, yes, that's when ACTH, that's when norepinephrine, that's when glucocorticoids, if he knows, are not being produced properly, right? And that's what we call adrenal fatigue. It is a real thing. It's just like leaky gut. We don't call it leaky gut in medicine. We call it increased intestinal permeability, right? But they're both the same. It's just semantics. People love to feed their egos, and it is what it is. A lot of times too, and again, I work with phenomenal MDs, so I'm not putting everybody in one little box, but an MD typically doesn't want to take an ND's advice, and a psychiatrist is also an MD. So just, keep that in mind. It is what it is. It's not a big deal. Both forms of medicine are absolutely fantastic. However, Adderall is a legalized form of speed. It is not healthy for you. No one should be prescribed it. They should always look for the underlying root causes, and it is never the patient's fault. I want to repeat that. It's never the patient's fault that they are taking Adderall because they were never given an alternative, right? They were never given a second opinion of what you could do. You're just saying, take Adderall, you have ADD, you have ADHD. I'm very happy when I was in school a bunch of years ago that they didn't have Adderall because I would have been prescribed it. I had what they would call ADHD. And so, but here's the bottom line. My recommendation is the least expensive test to look at is called a hair tissue mineral analysis. Have your functional naturopathic doctor look at that as well. You can look for what's called a copper toxicity. That's very important to look at for ADD or ADHD. That'll be nice. You can work on that with using higher amounts of zinc, but also just you have to rebuild your adrenals, right? So here's the thing. Okay. I give this analogy a lot, and that's because it's true. If you're riding a horse all day and you just rode for 10 hours, that horse is exhausted. So it goes to sleep at night, it rests, it relaxes, all that good stuff. But let's say you get up in the middle of the night, there's an emergency, you need to ride that horse again. The horse is exhausted. It does not want to run. But if you whip it, which is cruel and inhumane, it will get up and it will run, right? If you put your spurs in its sides, it will run. That's what Adderall does. The horse is tired. Adderall is the whip. So, look at it that way. Another thing is if you're exhausted and you drink a cup of coffee, that is the Adderall. You're tired. Your body needs rest. It needs to be rebuilt. Rest is not enough. I shouldn't say that. I used to sleep 10 to 12 hours a night. I was not recovering from my adrenal fatigue. It never happened. I needed to rebuild my body, and that's what you have to do too. You need to look at the food sensitivity triggers. You need to look at heavy metal toxicity. You need to look at neurotransmitters. You need to look at calming your own response to stress. You need to be taking good vitamin C, a multi. Really, when you have adrenal fatigue, it means that your central nervous system has been exhausted and wiped out. You need to rebuild from the ground up, look for a nice little improvement every single month. work on your breathing, calm that sympathetic nervous system, and that's the true way to recover. So Edith, hopefully that helps. Vivek is up next, and I have no doubt that I mispronounced that name. Maybe Vivek. Maybe if you have a name that isn't the simple names, even though I love the more interesting names out there, and my 2 daughters have very interesting names, feel free to write it in phonetically if I can't pronounce it, because you know that I can't. All right. Thanks, Dr. Cabral, for all your help. I have been on quite the journey, making a lot of progress with many aspects of my health, but I feel there are things I can still improve on. I have worked with many functional doctors, naturopaths, metabolic nutritionists, and done elaborate tests and protocols. I've been noticing my liver area and sometimes the left side under my rib cage feel a little tender and heavy. Okay, so just a quick aside before I get into the rest of your question. Your liver is underneath your right side of your rib cage and your spleen is under the left side of your rib cage, just for everyone. All right, she goes on to say, I still have some skin itchiness and rashes, irritation, minor hair loss and patches, eyebrows, and hands get hot, cold, as well as chills in my body, feet in the evening. There is a tongue coating, stale breath at times. I also have elevated liver enzymes and SIBO, and have a feeling that my gut health is a result of my liver health. All right, so Vivek goes on to state a bunch of things she's done, like everything, right? Supplements, infrared sauna, you name it, she's done it. Okay. I've worked with many Viveks in my practice before. And what I can tell you is this: when you look at all of these things and you try so many different things, you have to go back to this. I don't believe that it's your liver health that's resulting in everything else. Now, your liver health is a huge part of it, right? And that's why I created the Dr. Cabral Detox. I'm not recommending the Dr. Cabral Detox to you right now. What I'm recommending is this. If you have elevated SIBO, I believe that's one of the reasons why your liver is compromised. And it's because of this. If you have, after every single meal, you have proteins and other pathogens like bacteria or candida or potentially parasites moving through your intestinal wall, and there's about 28 feet of that, right, into your bloodstream. What filters all that? What gets first shot? Your liver, right? So first we have to do is we have to stop offending the liver. Yes, should we support the liver? I agree, right? I agree. No doubt about that. You will not get an argument from me. How do we fix this long term? Long term, to fix the energy, to fix the digestion, to fix all of these things, the immune process. I mean, you're losing patches of hair. You're losing patches of hair either because it's an autoimmune based response, because you have all of these particles in your blood that shouldn't be there, which is raising your immune system, or the other cases as well, is it's this massive stress and your body is absolutely under stress. It could be lifestyle based as well as digestive based, but certainly it's digestive based. So when you look at that, you're not going to fix the cold hands. You're not going to fix the patches until you really seal up that gut wall, as well as decrease stress levels. Is this simple and straightforward? Not necessarily. I'm not saying that, but it's absolutely fixable. I mean, I dealt with every single thing you're talking about right now. People deal with exactly what you're talking about in my practice every single day. And so what I would say is, find that naturopath that you really feel, or functional medicine doctor, knows the most about gut health, and then work on that. Because if you have a coating on your tongue and the breath is a little bit stale, I basically say that's food, bacteria fermenting in your stomach. It's like not pressing the button on the garbage disposal, and after a few days, that garbage disposal just smells, right? So that's your gut, and that smell is coming back up from that garbage disposal, which is your stomach and gut. So that is the place to start. It absolutely is. You do have to look at that. You can have elevated SIBO or bacterial-based problems and not start there. But one other thing I would say is you have to work on that. And that's why I believe that the protocols I use are very, very successful, is because I'm working on stress too at the same time. Because you can do all the greatest things for SIBO, but what happens is, this might be getting a little too in depth, but I feel like you need to know this because you've tried so much, is the small intestine. So the ileum is the very last part of the small intestine, and the cecum is the very first part of the large intestine, and the ileum connects to the cecum. So the small intestine is like 23 feet or so. It connects to the large intestine, which is about 5 feet, 6 feet. And that valve right there is where the small intestine dumps food and bacteria into the large intestine. It's your stool. And what happens is sometimes when you're stressed, that valve called the ileocecal valve stays open. And guess what? That backup from your colon, that bacteria comes into your small intestine, and that should never be there. And that is why some people never get rid of SIBO. So you're going to take that information, you're going to meet with a great functional medicine or functional medicine naturopath, which is, I just think it's the best education in the world. And then they're going to help you through that process. And if they don't help you through that process, I'm happy to work with you on that as well. But I really believe that you'll be able to find someone, hopefully in your area, and then you'll be able to get the results that you need. Because I know that you've already put in the work, you've ran the tests, you're used to taking supplements, you can do this. Remember, focus always on the 20% that's going to get you the 80% of results. So don't look everywhere. Look towards repairing this intestinal permeability, this small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, calming stress levels, and then you can work on liver health as well at the same time. Or your liver is going to feel better when it has less toxins to essentially filter from your blood, because your liver filters all of your blood in your body every 6 minutes. So stop putting as much in the blood, your liver will have less to filter. I could go on and on, but I want to thank you one and all for always tuning into the Cabral concept. I truly appreciate it. I truly appreciate every listen, and I'm absolutely grateful and thankful. And I do hope to be speaking with you tomorrow on our Mindset and Motivation Monday.
Ever wonder what the best sauna, blue blockers, sleep trackers, wake lights, salt lamps, or other health gadgets are? Or what about the top non-toxic mattresses, sheets, soaps, bath products, toothpaste, and cookware? Or would you like to know the cleanest choices for hemp hearts, meal delivery services, supplements, and much more? I personally curated, researched, and now created a resource page of all of my top picks that continues to grow each week. These are the exact products I use in my own life, with my family, in my private practice, and they're the ones I trust. To find out all of my up-to-date recommendations and all the details, simply head on over to stephencabral.com/resources.